Mega Man X5 is the fifth game in the X sub-series of the Mega Man games, and was, at least originally intended to be the game that would conclude the sub-series, before the series would proceed to move on to the GBA with the Zero series. As any fan even slightly adjacent to the Mega Man series can tell you, this did not quite pan out this way, with the series getting a few more games whilst the Zero sub-series was continuing at the same time. But X5 does contain many elements that suggest that it was intended to be a conclusive game for the series, including various references to the previous Mega Man games in its design and presentation, as well as including a story that is more dramatic and enriching than almost any Mega Man game that came before it. And it even includes unique gameplay design and elements that differ greatly from the previous games in the series. Unfortunately, particularly as of recent, people have felt that this game's good qualities are bogged down by its execution and its obvious lack of budget compared to the previous games. But I didn't come here to give a full review of this game. No, what I'm here for is to tell you, should someone be interested in trying this game, what's the best way to do so? Are there any available versions of the game that make it more accessible or improve upon it in some way? Or does the original still remain the best way to go? That's the question I'll answer today, as on this first installment of this new sub-series, I will tell you the best way to play Mega Man X5. Fortunately for us, there's little question of what method to play X5 rules supreme. The honors easily goes to the Mega Man X5 Improvement Project, a fan-made patch for the original PlayStation game, originally started by Dark Hunter as a method of adding a few quality of life additions to the game, which would receive an addendum version a year later by Ace Dice, which would restore graphics, songs, and voice clips from the Japanese version, as well as some unused songs into the game, only to then very recently receive an enhanced 2.0 version, including an entire retranslated script, plus several brand new features introduced into the game. Honestly, the amount of work and effort that's gone into this to improve upon the original game is truly admirable, and I wholeheartedly recommend any Mega Man fan who enjoys the game or otherwise try out the game again with this patch enabled. To give a proper rundown of the exact features that this improvement project adds, kept from the original version of the improvement project by Dark Hunter, are the ability to permanently disable alias hints, the ability to keep both the Four Farmer and the Sea Buster regardless of who you played the intro stage with, Hurt Tank and Life Up parts affecting both X and Zero, as well as effects for this injured sprite X and Zero use that appear in the intro level, as well as a redesign for the saving and loading menu. On top of these features, the Improvement Project Addendum by Ace Dice adds many more features. Starting with the graphics, not only is the title screen fully restored to the Japanese version with appropriate English equivalent text, but the names of the Mavericks are also restored to the Japanese equivalents, using for example Dresden Grizzly in place of Grizzly Slash. On top of this, the game also uses the retranslated version of the names introduced in the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, for example using Title Whale instead of Title McQueen, with appropriate customized graphics to fit. The next big new addition this patch makes note of is the script. The game contains a complete replacement of the original game's script based on the retranslated script by Hundori, which naturally aims to improve upon the original script and make it more accurate to the Japanese version. If one would prefer to use the original American version's script and font for the game, there are optional versions of the patch that keep that, though these versions will still fix various typos in the game, as well as use the Japanese names for the Mavericks. Another addition to the project that's completely optional are replacements for the soundtrack. The main patch for the project replaces several songs in the game with either equivalent songs used in the Japanese version, or different songs that were used in the game's prototypes but were replaced for the final game. As said before, the soundtrack replacement is completely optional, but I do think it's worth taking a listen to them to see if you would prefer to have them over the original songs. The presentation of the game is far from the only thing that this patch alters, for it also makes a great many changes to the gameplay to improve and streamline it. The system for unlocking the equipable parts has been significantly improved. You no longer have to be at a specific number of hours in order to unlock them. Instead, you are immediately given them when you find all the available items in a level, and you get all parts that are available regardless of which option you picked, now making the selection exclusively affect whether you get life up or energy up. One of the game's most notorious aspects, the RNG determined endings, have been improved upon in this patch. The Enigma and Shuttle will both always fail if you have no parts when you use it, but the Shuttle will always succeed if you use it with all 4 parts. The stages have also received significant improvements. Tidal Whale stage now auto-scrolls faster, and the strange slowdown that Dark Necrobat stage has is removed. But perhaps the most significant and impressive improvement made to X5 is the changes made to the armor system. X5 and X6 both notoriously stand in defiance of how the series usually handles the armors. The game does not allow you to use an armor as soon as you get a single part for it. instead requiring you to get all the parts in order for the armor to be available, making the armors more comparable to unlockable extra characters as opposed to straight upgrades for X. The Improvement Project graciously does all that it can to change the armor system back to the old one. You still won't immediately receive the armor after getting the first part for it, but as soon as you return to the character select screen, you'll immediately see that the armor is available regardless of how many parts you have for it. And from there, so long as you have it equipped, you'll receive the armor parts for it as soon as you get them. This of course also means that you can benefit from each armor's parts individually, as opposed to only being able to use all of them at once. To further bolster this improvement, changes have been made to the armors themselves. The Falcon armor has only received one major change, but it is a good one. You now use the usual air dash by default when you get the life parts for the Falcon armor. Its pre-move type air dash is made available only when you complete the armor, allowing you to use both air dashes with the full armor, which was done by moving the free move air dash to the jump button. The Gaia armor, by comparison, has received quite a few more significant improvements. For one, its helmet part actually has a function now, as it now speeds up the X-Buster's charge, turning into a fully charged shot only at mid-charge. On top of this, it also has its dash speed penalty removed. If one desires, the Improvement Project also has many options to customize it. As alluded to before, there are multiple alternate versions of the patch, including removing the retranslation, removing the music changes, removing both, and keeping all the music changes except the opening theme. Even further customizations can be made within the game, but be forewarned that these require knowledge of a hex editor in order to activate. Overall, it cannot be stated enough how useful this patch is. It really is a big improvement to the original game, and I can't recommend enough you try it for yourself. For those who are interested in trying it for themselves, I'll leave a link to the download link in the forum in the description below. And that marks the end of that, as well as the end of the first episode of this sub-series. I'll leave it to your own discretion from here whether or not you want to try out the Improvement Project. As of now, the best way to play Mega Man X5.